94 million wireless broadband subscribers. So it is easy to imagine that by next year there could be 100 million wireless broadband subscribers. This trend should accelerate as more innovators build out infrastructure to operate in parts of the airwaves that the FCC recently auctioned. To give you more context regarding the growth of the wireless market generally, 3 years ago the discussion of a wireless-only America was just beginning. Today, nearly 1 in 5 American households are wireless only, while the majority of American consumers has a choice of 5 wireless carriers. In the meantime, 23% of all businesses are expected to be wireless only by the year 2012. That's almost a quarter of all American businesses without a wireline phone. Furthermore, the Fiber to the Home Council recently announced the results of a study which found that the current number of fiber to the home subscribers in America is more than 5.3 million. Even better, the study's data also illustrates that the number of homes that have direct access to fiber, those homes that could subscribe if they wanted to, increased from only 1% 5 years ago, just 5 years ago, to roughly 15% today. And fiber, of course, is today's holy grail among last-mile broadband facilities because it provides the fastest possible direct connections between the Internet and home computers, TV screens, and other devices. But the point is, as a direct result of our deregulatory policies over the past few years, consumers are enjoying more choices among more communications technology services and providers than ever before. The result is an explosion of entrepreneurial brilliance and fast-paced changes in consumer habits that no one foresaw just a short time ago. For instance, this is one of my favorite statistics. 168 million Americans watched more than 25 billion videos over their Internet connections during the month of September alone. Let me repeat that so that sinks in. 168 million Americans watched more than 25 billion videos through their Internet connection just in the month of September. Currently, this relatively new market for online videos is enjoying a year-over-year growth rate of 106% per year. Keep in mind that these net videos are tugging hard on America's broadband infrastructure and challenging the owners of broadband networks in ways that were unimaginable until recently. Building more infrastructure to accommodate these new bandwidth-intensive uses of the Internet takes large amounts of investment capital. In fact, by some estimates, America's broadband companies may invest over $70 billion in new infrastructure this year alone, $70 billion. Few, if any, segments of the economy can brag about such capital expenditure figures. And that figure dwarfs any other country's public or private investment in broadband. Precisely because we are Americans, we are never satisfied with the status quo and always want to do better. More Americans should have access to fatter and faster broadband pipes. But we should ask ourselves, did we get this far as the result of government regulation, or have we seen an explosion of new offerings and increasing consumer adoption because government stepped out of the way and encouraged investment in the construction of new delivery platforms? It is important to ask these questions today as the FCC considers ideas for its congressionally mandated National Broadband Plan due to Congress in February. The information and communications technology sector, what we call ICT, is poised to lead our country out of the recession and into an era of sustained economic prosperity, higher paying jobs, and untold consumer benefits if the government does not adopt policies that inhibit economic freedom and investment. Chairman Julius Genachowski, who's the new chairman of the FCC, he and I agree that the estimated $20 billion to $350 billion needed to ensure broadband ubiquity throughout America should come from the private sector. On October 1st, I chaired a hearing on capital formation in the broadband sector, where investors and impartial investment analysts of all stripes agreed that one way to provide a disincentive for investment is for the government to create regulatory uncertainty. Such uncertainty could come in the form of the FCC's recent Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, we call that an NPRM here in Washington, that carries the title of Preserving the Open Internet, elsewhere known as our net neutrality or our network management, NPRM. I dissented on the factual and legal predicates underpinning this initiative, but I concurred in starting the process of opening yet another record so we could have a new debate that is full and fair. For a few years now, some have been concerned that, just a little bit of background here, some have been concerned that because most Americans have had a choice of only a cable modem provider or a phone company's DSL offering, that a duopoly in the last mile of the Internet has produced a situation where these two companies theoretically could manipulate in an anti-competitive way the content and software consumers use online. Providers of online applications, such as search engines, have been particularly concerned that broadband service providers could favor their own applications or software offerings at the expense of their competitors. At first blush, these concerns seem plausible. In my view, however, before the FCC takes another step, it should answer the following question. Is the Internet broken? Well, I have some good news. The government has already looked into this possibility. Recently, in fact. In 2007, the FCC launched what we called a notice of inquiry into the status of the broadband market. We asked anyone who had evidence of systemic market failure to give it to us. We asked the whole world, anywhere, please give it to us. None was offered. None. That same year, the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, issued a report on the state of the broadband market after a deep and substantive investigation. The FTC concluded in a bipartisan and unanimous 5-0 vote that market failure to the degree that would warrant new regulations did not exist. In fact, the FTC took the unusual step of warning, and I quote, "We suggest that policymakers proceed with caution in evaluating calls for network neutrality regulation. No regulation, however well-intended, is cost-free, and it may be particularly difficult to avoid unintended consequences here, where the conduct at which regulation would be directed largely has not yet occurred." End quote. Keep in mind that not only was that report bipartisan and unanimous, but it was issued only 29 months ago. Given this recent finding, we should next ask what market conditions have changed in the past 2 years that would justify a major departure from bipartisan government policy that has worked so well since the Clinton-Gore administration. And that begs perhaps the most important question I would like to see answered before the FCC ventures down the path of unprecedented regulation. If the Internet is broken, is government the best tool to fix it? As I've said many times, the Internet is perhaps the greatest deregulatory success story of all time. Although it was originally a government creation, it became the fastest penetrating human invention ever, not through command and control government industrial policy, but by privatizing it in 1994. Now, the Clinton-Gore administration did not invent the Internet, but they did privatize it, and they do deserve credit for that.